Okay, this is Greg Sierra, and what I'm going to do here is go over the lessor group homework. And I'm going to use the assumption that, so from the lessor group homework, let's see, 5147325. So the fair value of the item equals 5147. Was that 325? Yes, it was 325. Implicit rate, lessor always uses the implicit rate, 6%. Payments, 7. That's a little bit messy, isn't it? Even for me. Say 7 payments in advance. Just say advance. 1 January 1. Lease inception is January 1 of FY01. So let me put FY01. The residual value, go take a peek at that, is 411,786. And it doesn't matter if it's guaranteed, so I won't even put that there. And then the item is returned. That does matter. Item returned. What other facts do we need to know? Doesn't matter if it's guaranteed or not for the lessor, as long as it is returned. We don't need the incremental rate because we're doing a lessor problem. Lessor always uses the implicit rate. And let's see. Oh, here's a big one. Executory costs are $10,000 per year paid with, I'll call it the rent payment, just as a shorthand way to distinguish between the amount paid for using the item versus for insurance and stuff like that. So in my schedule that you're looking at, I add in the executory cost. You could have done one without an executory cost column, but made the payment $823. So I'll put the rent payment of $823,592, which means that the lease payment with the executory costs is $833,592. Now, as part of your assignment, you were asked to calculate the payment. For myself, I am just doing the payment because I want to get to the other parts of the journal entry, specifically of the problem, specifically the journal entry. So let's go back and just, well, we don't have to go back. I inserted it in this document. We'll look at this. Here are the 7 payments plus the executory costs. Here's the residual value of 411,786. Here's a column for executory costs, which you'll see in your textbook. And what I do here is for the amortization of the lease receivable, this will equal the LR beginning and take the 833,592, but then you have to subtract out the 10,000 in executory costs because those don't reduce the lease receivable. All right. So that's where the 823 came from. And if you had interest revenue, you'd have to add that plus interest revenue. And in this first case, it was 0, which equals 0. So that's where you get the 823,592, which is the amortization lease receivable on 1/1 FY01. Okay. So that's how you deal with the executory cost in the schedule. But what I really want to do is go over the journal entries. So on 1/1/FY01, you're going to capitalize lease receivable and write off equipment. 5/1/4/7/3/2/5. 5/1/4/7/3/2/5. Going a little fast, but you know what? This is a video, so you can rewind. And you take the first payment of 8 with the executory cost, 833, what was it, 592? 592. And as the schedule says, the lease receivable is reduced by 823. And then you have exec cost payable, not expense. This is a credit, increases a liability. The lessor just is making the payment on behalf of the lessee. Executory cost for the lessee are expenses. Then you have your 1231 adjusting entry, FY01. You'll have interest receivable, interest revenue. Let's go up here. 259. So we're looking at this 259,424. 259,424. 259,424. And the next payment date, 1/1/FY02. You are going to receive cash. 8, same as before. The cash is the cash is the cash is the cash. 592. You're going to remove the interest receivable. You're going to amortize your LR lease receivable, and then you're going to have your executory costs payable again. So that is 10,000. Interest receivable is 259,424. And even though I think, let's see, the schedule says 169, there's probably some rounding there. Oh man, snap, that was not good. Okay, I erased the whole schedule with this annotator, so that's not good. But you get the idea that this is a plug number here, and it should be to the nearest dollar in your schedule, but sometimes there's pennies back there that round. So it looks like instead of 564,1, is that a 6 behind there? 564,168, I think is, yeah, that's right. Okay. All right, so very quickly on the sales type. So for sales type, there was some confusion about the lease receivable for some of these sales types. So whoops, FY1, I'll just do the inception because everything after inception is the same. You have a lease receivable, you have a cost of goods sold, you have a sales revenue, and you have, instead of equipment, we call it inventory. The lease receivable is the same, it's 5147325. The inventory now, they tell you is 4.5 million. Okay, first thing I'm pointing out here is the lease receivable is the fair value always, 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 always whenever you have it. And otherwise, it's the present value minimum lease payments plus present value of any unguaranteed residual value, which equals the fair value. Now, this one had an unguaranteed residual value. So cost of goods sold is going to equal 4.5 million minus the present value of the residual value, and sales revenue will equal 5147325, also minus the present value of the residual value. This is the item returned, unguaranteed residual value case, okay? That's why we have to subtract the present value of the residual value out in both circumstances, and I'm going to do this the easy way. 4226139 4226139 and 4873464. 4873464. Okay. So if you have any questions, of course, contact me, but that should cover almost all the confusions, if any, that you had with the lesser group homework.